What if the Void Century reveal is much darker than we think? The story of One Piece takes place in a dystopian world, and I don't think we realize how intense Oda's final reveal could be. Let's talk about my evidence to support this, and my overall theory about the part of the Void Century that I never see anyone talking about. Let me cook for a second. Trust me, this is worth the watch. What's good? I'm Jess, aka Coco Sensei. I do anime and manga related content, reviews, and occasionally talk about Jesus. If you're new, welcome, get a snack and sit down, because we got a lot to talk about. One Piece is presented as a fun pirate adventure of a young man's journey to becoming the strongest and freest person on the seas. But soon we realize that the world around him is not what it seems. The first slip we see of this is in Alabasta. After Luffy and the Straw Hats defeat Crocodile, the world government gives Captain Smoker the credit. Now it's lame, but we take it as the government trying to save face, and move on rather quickly to the next adventure. But in hindsight, this is the first indication that something's not right here. It's only when we get to Enies lobby that the crack in the world's facade really starts to show. There we understand more fully the underhanded dealings of the government, how they truly have no regard for human life. They will order genocide in the name of justice to cover up and manipulate the truth of the world. We see it's not just about saving face anymore. They want to erase history, and to maintain the status quo, they will easily order the death of any person who dare to uncover the past. But even though we're more aware after this reveal, the main story in progress is saving Robin, so we just happy when she's rescued safely and we can continue on our journey. But after learning all of this, we still don't understand the full depravity of this world. Enies lobby was simply the tip of the iceberg. This might seem like review, but trust me, I'm going somewhere. Cracks just continue to form and deepen once we get to Subodi Archipelago, and we see not only human trafficking booming and the slave trade in action, but the veil is peeled back and we are now aware of the celestial dragons, who are sanctioned by the government and have full range to be a sadistic evil with no concept of accountability. This is when it really hits that the world is truly broken at its core. But again, this is quickly overlooked because the crew is in danger. And then Luffy breaks into Impel Down. And then Marineford happens. And the time skip. And after all of that, we're just happy the crew is back together and excited to see their new skills. You would think that this would be enough to show how deeply flawed the world government's design was. But recently, the last nail in the coffin for me is Egghead Island. In Egghead, the reveal of Kuma's backstory deepens this point. In his backstory, we see how unspeakably evil the celestial dragons treat people who have been enslaved. We see the death games the celestial dragons hold, then discover the experiments by Saint Saturn on Jenny and Bonnie, which are done so casually that we just know he's done far more than we can even imagine. Then on top of all of that, even more genocide. All these events, they're all fairly current events within the last 20 to 30 years. In a world with deep and rich history such as One Piece, there's no way the Void Century isn't much darker. The events that led to this type of government seizing control had to have been even more tragic. So what exactly happened? The Void Century is a century-long gap in the recorded history. These events took place between 800 to 900 years ago, and are so important that the government has forbid any study of them. What we know of the Void Century is that a highly intelligent and advanced nation thrived during this time. It seemed to be a metropolis that welcomed all people. We know their allies included the Shandorians, the people of Wano, the Fishmen, the Giants, the Minks, and humans alike. It was a country that thrived from technological advancements. But people be hating, as people do. And 20 nations came together to utterly erase them from the face of the earth. But through their foresight, the Great Kingdom created the poneglyphs, great stone tablets that tell the true history, contain clues to where other poneglyphs are, and contain directions to Laugh-Tale, the final island. But what never made any sense about this to me is how such an advanced, powerful nation could be defeated. I know even the most powerful nations fall after a while, but something just never felt right. We know they were strong, We know they had the ancient weapons, and we know they had allies. With such a great force, how in the world could it fall? The only way is betrayal. What I believe is there was a great betrayal that happened that led to Joyboy sacrificing himself and being killed, the great kingdom being erased into the sea, and then the allies being scattered, forced to protect their respective poneglyphs and wait for the time of their redemption. My theory has 3 parts: Joyboy, the betrayal, and the Great War. And if you made it this far, you might as well hit that like and subscribe button for more dope One Piece content. The original Joyboy, I believe, was a giant or a hybrid, like that of the Buccaneer race, if not a Buccaneer himself. We know he was bigger than any normal human by the straw hat we saw Emu standing in front of. And giants are known to live for centuries, so him remaining relevant during the entire Void Century and being such a prominent person makes sense. Some people have theorized he was the king of the Great Kingdom, but I don't think so. I don't believe he was the king because one major quality that's stressed about him, and in One Piece in general, is freedom. Being a good king who's responsible for his people doesn't equate to pure freedom. I believe he was an allied protector of the Great Kingdom. He was a person who befriended all races of people. We know he had close ties to the fishmen of that time and was friends with Zunisha. I believe he was a devil fruit user who ate the Hito Hito no Mi. We know the sun god Nika is worshipped by the giants and the Buccaneers alike. So for Joyboy being the embodiment of the sun god would just deepen his position as the protector of the Great Kingdom. What if the true reason the Great Kingdom was destroyed was because of the Great Weapons? I believe the Great Kingdom created these weapons to destroy the Red Line. I'll talk more about my Red Line theory specifically in another video. After the Great Kingdom created the weapons, others found out and began to covet their power. I believe Emu was once a part of the Great Kingdom. He was Nerona Emu, the ruler of an unknown allied kingdom. I even believe Emu was friends with Joyboy and a close confidant. And what if, after experiencing such great power close up, Emu wanted that power for himself? And what if Emu was extremely jealous of the natural way people gravitated towards Joyboy as well? His light and laugh, the freedom he carried himself with. Emu secretly hated it because it was the opposite of who he was. So he set in motion a plan to turn other countries against the Great Kingdom, steal Uranus, the greatest of the ancient weapons, and permanently cripple the Great Kingdom from ever rising back up to its glory. But to get to the Great Kingdom, you had to go through Joyboy, and he knew that wouldn't be an easy feat. So Emu began to scheme, spreading rumors and lies, saying the kingdom was full of devils planning to take over the world. Instilling fear would of course rally nations to want to protect themselves. And if he was known to be close with the Great Kingdom, it would give his story credibility. The others would think, surely this person who's friends with that kingdom would have seen and heard such a plot. Emu would have been in the great halls and close to the royalty. He would have known of the weapons. Why wouldn't they trust his word? And at the same time, those nations knew they couldn't confront the Great Kingdom on their own. So joining up together made sense. 20 nations coming together under the false pretense of protecting themselves, with the assurance that this new world order would keep every nation equally in power. Of course they'd fall for it, especially if they were already jealous. But what Emu didn't account for was Nefertari Lily. Alabasta was one of the original 20 allied nations. Lily was the queen of Alabasta during this time. But I believe Lily was close to Joyboy and didn't believe what Emu was saying. What if she told Joyboy as much as she knew, and he told her to stay with the nations as a spy and keep an eye on what was happening? What if Emu found a way to steal the weapon Uranus, which began the war on the Great Kingdom? I believe the allied kingdoms were overconfident though, and messed around and found out. As the battle began, they soon realized the war wasn't going in their favor. What if this prompted Emu to make the decision to use the weapon, not to just cripple the kingdom, but to erase them for good? I think Lily went back and let Joyboy know, And Joyboy decided to make a deal to sacrifice himself to save the citizens' lives. But before he let himself be imprisoned by Emu, him and the Great Kingdom decided to create the poneglyphs to share their story. What if Lily had the pawpaw fruit, and using its power, she spread the poneglyphs throughout the world? And she sent the wealth that Joyboy had obtained in his adventures, and one final poneglyph with a strange story on it, to an island we know as Laugh-Tale. Then once all was done, Joyboy went to offer himself up as a prisoner, under the conditions that the great nation would be spared. He set sail with his crew and had them disband with the understanding that they would regroup and come back for revenge another day in the future. But upon capturing Joyboy, Emu weakened him some way so that he couldn't fight back, then had him watch as Uranus was activated and the Great Kingdom was destroyed, killing its citizens, as well as causing a major worldwide flood. Then he turned to kill Joyboy, and Joyboy let him know that he'd never erase the memory of the nation, and that the dawn would come again. After this, I believe Emu would have continued to tell the rest of the world at that time that the Great Kingdom was made of devils who sought to bring destruction. Then the world government was formed, and the new gods of this world were decided. But the nations who were friends with the Great Kingdom and the disbanded crew of Joyboy would have risen up in smaller rebellions and either ended up killed, punished like Zunisha, or sent to Tequila Wolf to work. But in that struggle is where the will of D came from. The will of the devils that would bring the dawn. They would add the D into their name to remember the truth and to let their allegiance be known to each other, just like those who were loyal to the Kozuki clan had the crescent moon in Wano. And by this time, Emu would have found out about the making of the poneglyphs in defeating the rebellions, which would lead him back to Lily. Lily would lie and explain they had used her or forced her or whatever accident happened. And eventually Emu would ultimately kill her. Then sometime after, he'd have someone use the op-op fruit to make him immortal, and the events of the current world would be set in motion. I think the song Binks Sake's True Nature is the last song of Joyboy's crew, who knew though we might die, our will shall live on. Imagine Joyboy asking them to turn him over to Emu, and to have one last drink on the way. I like the translation from the Japanese kanji. Parts of it say, "Farewell to the harbor, to my old hometown. Let's sing out as the ship sets sails. Waves of gold and silver dissolve to salty spray as we set sail to the ends of the sea." I think this is clearly them having to leave the Great Kingdom and understanding that their country has now fallen. The song continues saying, "Now comes a storm through the far-off sky. Now the waves are dancing. Beat upon the drums. If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. But if you hold on, the morning sun will rise." They were heading off to face off in a final stand against their enemies, and were calling on each other to keep their resolve. But ultimately, they knew it was over, because it further continues saying, "Today, tomorrow, our dreams through the night. Waving our goodbyes, we'll never meet again. But don't look so down, for tomorrow night the moon will rise. Going to deliver Binks Sake. Let's all sing it with a song of the waves. Doesn't matter who you are, someday you'll just be bones. Never ending, ever wandering. Our funny traveling tale." Joyboy knew their story would live on through the poneglyphs, so they drank and laughed, not fully realizing the painful fate that awaited. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know some of your favorite theories. If you want more videos like this and want to be a part of my crew of misfits, hit that like and subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you're not missing any new content. I'm Jess, aka Coco Sensei, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Love you guys.